Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srivatsangam Mahavarastam Vanamala Viradedam Shankhichakradaram Devam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Shri Krishnaya Paramatmane Namaha. Om Shri Parthasarane Namaha. I bow to Lord Krishna, the universal Guru. I bow to all the Gurus of this tradition, starting from Shivananda Swami, Krishnananda Swami, and Chidananda Swami. My obeisance to all the noble people who have gathered here this evening, and my thanks for having invited me here. So today we are talking on the science called Hinduism. That's my latest book, which I already forgot to mention. The science called Hinduism. Now, Hinduism is not a religion. It is a science. It is a science of life. It's a science of living, the technique of life and living, and leading to us to that great being with whom you want to have union with. So you might think, most Hindus, even Hindus think, that Hinduism is filled with a lot of superstitious nonsense, which especially the younger generation have no idea why we go to temples, what are these hundreds of rituals which we practice, and nobody knows the core of Hinduism, which is purely scientific, purely from the beginning to the end. Everything that a Hindu does from the morning to the evening is totally and absolutely scientific. The great scientists of this religion were known as the rishis, and they are the ones who gave us this wonderful, amazing science, as I said, a science of living. It has never been called a religion because religion is something connected with some prophet or some, some ideology or something. But this has existed from the dawn of time. Nobody knows when Hinduism started, because that word itself is a misnomer. It was a name given by the British to those who lived between the Himalayas on one side and the Hindu Kush, or the Indus River, which is no longer existing now. They called them the Hindus. So anyone who lives in that land, holy land, which between the Himalayas and Indus River, can be called a Hindu. Not just the Hindus themselves, but anyone, any other race or creed or religion which lives in that land can be called Hindu. And they have a right to what the ancient knowledge which the rishis gave to us. As I said, this knowledge has been enfolded in the great books known as the Veda. Veda means to know, knowledge. All knowledge is contained in them. All scientific knowledge as well as knowledge of the materialistic world. Because the rishis realized that there was a need for the human being, not just for spiritual knowledge, but also material knowledge. So there was two types of vidyas, vidya and avidya. Now, vidya is that experiential, spiritual, transcendental knowledge. And avidya is that experimental, scientific, and materialistic knowledge. Both these are parts of Hinduism because one has to lead to the other if there is anything to be learned from the world, in and through the world. we have to find that God. If God is there, if He is not to be found in this world, and He is to be found only in the heavens above, then who wants such a God? Who wants a God whom we are going to meet only after death, or to whom such promises are made that you do such and such a ritual here, and you might go to heaven, we don't know. But Hinduism insists, the Bhagavad Gita insists, the Lord Krishna says, this very moment, this very world itself, we should conquer that and have the ability to enter into that realm of spiritual consciousness. So now let us find out why I say that Hinduism is scientific. Now, and not only scientific, it doesn't refer to classical science, not to classical Western science, which knew nothing about nature. It was long after Copernicus found out that the Earth goes revolves around the sun, and he was he was nearly killed for his sake, because the Bible never said such a thing. So there was a discrepancy between science and religion in the West, which has never existed in India, for the simple reason that our religion was totally scientific. So there was the founders of our religions were the greatest scientists of all. They were special scientists called spiritual scientists. There was nothing they did not know about the running of this world, about every aspect of science, which is only available to us today in the 20th century. And therefore they clothed all their scientific discoveries in the cloak of stories, beautiful Puranic stories, which actually in which are embedded great scientific truths. For instance, the Big Bang theory, which is available today. What was it in the Puranas? It said that the Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg burst. Out of that comes Akasha, Apas, and so on. What is this but the actual this thing of this Big Bang theory? But whereas the Western scientists could tell you anything which happened millions of years after the Big Bang, they have no idea what happened before the Big Bang. Hinduism tells us that. We, as the scientists of the Hindu, they knew what happened, because the initial entry before that, what was the initial entry before this Big Bang? That none of the scientists can tell. Only this much they can say, that there must have been some cosmic intelligence. That Martin Rees, who was a great cosmologist of Western science, he says there are, to imagine that this type of an amazing cosmos could have come out of sheer accident is just impossible. Which is what the scientists say, it's accident that something like this comes about out of nothing, out of the void. But Martin Rees, as I said, he said that the appearance of a cosmos like this, without an amazing cosmic intelligence behind that, is but totally impossible. He said there are six factors, which have to be exactly correct for the appearance of such a cosmos. Out of that, even if one of that six factors goes astray, there will have to be no world. One of this is 10 to the power of 36, he said, which is that this thing of gravity. If that is not exactly correct, what will happen if the gravity is not, it should be so weak, otherwise it will totally pull everything together, and that will be the end of it. So he says all these things, we won't go into all these things, but unless they are perfect, it's an impossibility that such a universe, such a cosmos can exist. So Hinduism thinks about what went before this Big Bang, what was that amazing intelligence, that cosmic intelligence which has conceived in detail every aspect of this cosmos and universe which we see now, and because of which we are sitting here now. Without that, we would not be existing here as a reasonably intelligent human beings and listening to this talk. So then they said that this intelligence is composed of three, that is, it is existence, consciousness and bliss. There are the three aspects of Brahman. Brahman means ever full, which is ever existing. And these three aspects are to be found in everything in the world that we see. And that Brahman, when he is, means to be ever full. That fullness is by itself, I said, there's a lot of which they say about how it comes into being slowly, how it, in the same way as evolution, but there was a difference in Darwinian evolution and what we call as evolution, even though the evolution is from the inorganic to organic and species, which is the same thing we also follow, but there is a difference in it as much as there is consciousness in all of these. Without that light of consciousness, there can be no evolution. That is the thing which we did not say, like the Bible says that in 7 days the Lord created the world. We follow the evolutionary method, but always guided by that divine intelligence, that divine consciousness, which projects everything as if it is, as if we think as if it is nothing. Now, again, let us see how the ancients describe the world. They said that Vedanta says all that which we see now is Maya. What exactly is their meaning? What does Maya mean? Maya does not mean that something does not exist, but Maya means that our perception of reality, reality as we perceive it, is wrong. Now let us see what Western science has to say about it. Of course, Western science, the classical science, had nothing to say about it. They thought the world was real. Atoms, according to Newton and so on, hard little balls or pellets, which existed as they are now. But so let's forget about classical physics and think about how close we have come. That only in the 20th century, end of the 19th century, with the beginning of quantum physics, that they came anywhere near the scientific discoveries of ancient India, of ancient Hinduism. Somewhere even near they did not come until the end of the 19th century. And what does quantum physics say? That we are all, according to quantum words, we are all packets of quantum energy which are constantly interacting with each other and deriving our energy from what they call, something they call the field, the 0-point field, which is a seething mass of energy, of particles and negative and positive particles and protons and neutrons colliding and going about with each other, and they call it the field. And strangely enough, for those of you who are familiar with Bhagavad Gita, in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna calls it the Kshetratnya Vibhaga Yoga. Kshetra means the field. And in that field, he encloses the entire cosmos or universe, which we can see, touch, feel, or hear. All that the five senses can tell us about. That he called as Kshetra, or the field. This is very strange. 10,000 years ago, this very word was used by him, which only now in quantum physics they are calling as the 0-point field. But they did not go as far as to say what Krishna said. Though there are many, many fields, there is only one farmer or divine farmer who tills all these fields and looks or knows the knower of these fields is only one, and that is the Kshetratnya, or the divine farmer, the divine eye which sees and knows everything. So the fields are many, but the knower of that field is only one. So I just brought it to you because your attention, because it is very strange indeed that he used this particular word. Now again, what does the 0-point field mean? that even we don't even have to go that far actually. When as I said, Newton thought that the whole world was a mechanized thing. I thought God was a kind of the world was like a big clock, a universal clock. And God was one clockmaker sitting up there, and he had put it all, he had tuned it so that it will go on forever without any sort of this thing. Unfortunately for him, when we come to the quantum physicists, the 19th and 20th century physicists, and Einstein came up with the theory of relativity. He said that nothing is really real. Nothing is as we see it. Everything is relative. Nothing which we think is. What is matter? He says matter is only energy in motion. Look how close they are coming to the Maya theory. Just what the Rishis told us, that whatever you are seeing, what do they mean by seeing? Maya. Maya means that which is not as you think it is. I think I'm sitting on a very solid floor, but according to the quantum physics, I'm sitting on a seething mass of energy which is always flowing and fighting and disappearing into that 0 point period. That void they call, out of this void they come thousands and thousands of electrons, neutrons and other particles which they come up and then they go back again, and then they come up again and they go back again. This is the seething mass of the field which the quantum physics saw. And this was seen by the rishis or seers of Hinduism millions of thousands of years ago. Isn't that, how could they say that? Even today when you tell the scientists tell us that we are not prepared, we are a bit doubtful. Is that really true? But because the scientists tell us that, we are prepared to agree, prepared to believe. But about these old seers with their graveyards, if they said that, who wants to believe them? Who will believe them? They knew that. That's why all their great findings were clothed in Puranic literature and Puranic words and stories, in the hope that one day some of the Homo sapiens who come to this world, one day they will be able to discover the greatness of the thought which they had given to the world. And not only that, but unfortunately they never realized that this greatness of the thoughts which they had given had been totally forgotten by the sons of the nation itself. The holy land of Bharat has produced a set of, what should I say, incompetent set of Hindus who think that who have mistaken apathy for tolerance. And they do nothing to fight for their religion, nor for their country, because they have no country. Hinduism lost to India, then there is no India. And that is a loss not only to India, but the whole world. Because the whole world looks up to this. Every country has its own karma to play, or role to play in the world. And India's role is that of the spiritual, to bring up spirituality in the whole world. And today, thousands of people come to India in order to seek for Hinduism. And what do they see? That the Hindus know zero about their own religion. They go to temples, they do these rituals, and without knowing, they have absolutely no idea what it all means. But as I said, every aspect of Hinduism is imbued and filled with scientific knowledge. They were the greatest, not only the greatest, they were the greatest scientists, they were astrologers, astronomers. They knew about the world going around the earth going around this thing, and they knew about the expanding universe and the, what should I say, galaxies, mega galaxies, multi-galaxies, they had names for all this. What is a Brahmanda? A Brahmanda is a multiple galaxies beyond our galaxy. Our own universe and the galaxy, is known as a Loka. We are in this Bhuloka. Above us there are 6 other Lokas. There are 7 Lokas above us. Bhu, Bhuva, Suvaha, and Janaha, Tavaha, and Satyam. These are the Lokas above us. What are these Lokas but galaxies? And below us also there are 7 galaxies. So these galaxies, and then as I said, the Brahmandas are the super galaxies. And they knew about the expanding universe also. Many of the stories, for instance, the Vamana, this thing of the story of Vamana, one foot he placed on this and he completely finished the earth. And the next he goes up to the Brahmandas. He goes beyond the shell of this particular galaxy. His toe protrudes out of that shell and goes on to the other galaxies. The Mahadevi in the Devi Purana, when she takes the Trimurtis on a drive up in the space, she takes them in her chariot and then they pass many galaxies. Each one has its own Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and so on. And she tells them, look at these galaxies. There are many such inside me, she said. So what does it all mean? They knew very well the existence of such things, which the Western philosophers had absolutely no idea of. They thought that the earth, this world, was the greatest of all, and nothing else existed, because that's what the Bible told them, that's what their religion told them. And anyone who said anything against it was straight to jail, and if he didn't want his head to be chopped off, he had to retract whatever he said. Like Galileo also, when he said that the earth went around the sun, he was jailed, and then just because he didn't want to be killed, he quickly retracted his views. But see how much their science was just curtailed by religion. Whereas for us, our religion has been so scientific that everything there was never a dichotomy between religion and science. So now you may think, let us think just a few ideas, and because otherwise the topic is too large for us to discuss in, I don't know how much time I'm allowed. Anyway, so let us see, we've just passed our New Year. All of us take April 14th as our New Year. So why is that taken as a New Year? It's a very scientific thing. This is not some sort of arbitrary taking of January 1st as New Year. What is January 1st? What does it mean? Nothing at all. But scientifically, the fact is that we all know that the Earth spins on its own axis. Now, and then it goes around the sun. It takes one year, 365 days to go around the sun. Now, the point from where it starts its journey around the sun is called the Alpha Aries point. And that point is the Mesha Sankranti. Mesha Sankranti, which normally falls on the April 14th. So that is called the Alpha Aries point. That Mesha Sankranti, when it goes, before it goes into the Meena, this thing, that is the point where we take as our New Year. Because that is the point from which the world starts, the earth goes around the sun. And that point was also known in Sanskrit as Mesha Vishuvat. That's why in Kerala the New Year is known as Vishu. It's known as Mesha Vishuvat. So just a small point, let us see how scientific, how they knew about everything that has happened. Now let us think about, we all have these beads. A lot of us keep going round on these beads. 108 beads. Why 108? Why 108? There are, the distance between the sun and the earth is 108 times the diameter of the sun. And the distance between the earth and the moon is 108 times the diameter of the moon. So obviously they knew the power or this thing of the number called 108, which very recently such things have been discovered in the West. Then also it is also the elliptic, the underneath is also the elliptic. That is the route taken by the planets to go one full round around the sun, which is of this galaxy. The sun is this. So it goes, all the planets revolve around it. That is known as the elliptic. Now that elliptic they cut into 4 padas. And each pada has 27 nakshatras. We know our stars are 27 nakshatra. We are all born under one star, one nakshatra. That's 27. Now, if you multiply 27 by 4, what do you get? 108. So, these 108, there are steps. Now, when we actually do the japa, we are actually taking one step or one nakshatra on each of our beings. We are actually drawing to us the energy of that planet. And then we come to the Meru, or the center point. What is that? At that center point, you are not supposed to cross the Meru. You should turn it around and go back again. So the Meru stands for the summer and winter solstices. When spring and winter solstice, where the sun seems to take a dramatic direction change. You don't realize this in the near the equator like this, you don't realize. But if you live in the northern hemisphere, you will find that after that Dakshinayana, that is the end of the winter, the sun has been totally, during Dakshinayana, it just totally goes to the south. You will never realize it in a place like this where it's all. But in the north, it's very clear. In our ashram, when we sit and watch sunset, it seems to be moving. Every day sunset goes farther and farther south. And then at the beginning of Uttarayana, January 14, it seems to take a sudden change. And slowly, it come back to the north. So that is the Meru. When we turn again, we don't cross the Meru. So you can imagine the amount they knew about the world, cosmology, the astronomy. We don't even have to think. They were the greatest astronomers and astrologers in the world. They knew everything about the stars, and the Ramayana Prince Valmiki was the greatest astrologer of all. He has given exact astronomical calculations of the birth of Rama, of Dasharatha's aligning this thing, when the war between Khara and Dushana took place, and so many other things, which today modern software technology can put it, you feed the software to that, and they have given us the exact dates which such things happen. Valmiki, as I said, is the first astronomer the world has ever produced. Not only the Adi Kavi, but also the Adi astrologer and astronomer also. And since they were such great astronomers, you can know that they were also great astrologers. They knew how these planets affected each planet. All the time we are under the influence of some planet or other. We don't realize it. But as and when these planets change, there is a difference not only in our bodily structure but mental structure also. When these planets keep beaming their negative tendencies on us, our human mind also changes and takes on negative tendencies, and we act in a strange manner which we normally we may not do so. So these things that were very, they knew exactly how these. So as I said, the science of astrology was so great that today we are surprised to find some of the great rishis, actually Agastya and Bhrigu, for instance. They wrote many. What in Tamil Nadu is called Vettu LA or something, in which that they have written out the astronomical details of people who are living now in this world. Olenchuri, Vettu something also, there's a name. So today people, if you go to one of these, you'll be shocked that everything about you is already written by some strange sage who lived thousands of years ago. How did they know all this? Now this is a question which is asked again and again. If they were scientists, how did they know all this without any modern instrumentation? So you must understand, they were not only scientists, they were high spiritual, evolved beings. What they knew, by See, by many processes of yoga, they had tuned their minds to high tuning, by which that itself created a laboratory by which they could imbibe knowledge from the ether, from this thing. The whole of nature was ready to provide them with the knowledge they wanted without any this thing of instruments, without reliance on instruments. Moreover, you can say, how does an instrument, a telescope for instance, if one has no eyes, how can a telescope help you or a microscope help you? So instruments are only an extension of our senses. They cannot work instead of our senses. And these people, as I said, they were multi-sensory beings. We are all five sensory beings. They were all multi-sensory beings, and they could beam their thoughts into whatever they wanted. To find something about a flower, they became the flower. And the knowledge of one's own self is perfect, accurate knowledge. Nobody need tell you, I think you have a pain on your foot. You know it instantly. So all their knowledge, none of this knowledge has ever been negated by something else. Like all Western scientists, someone says something, after some time another comes and says, no, that's not wrong, and then another one comes and no, that's wrong, another one comes and this goes on. This has never been negated for the simple reason that it was perfect knowledge. Knowledge of one's own self. And that self was reaching out to the farthest regions of the cosmos. There had only one self, and that self filled the entire cosmos. So what is it that they could not know? They were knowing of themselves because they had projected themselves to everything. That's why their knowledge is perfect knowledge. They were the greatest scientists. So now let us come down to maybe a few more of the very usual things which Hindus do and follow. And how is it that we can, how can you prove that to be scientific? Now, even now we are supposed to, nowadays of course nobody does this, but during for food or ashrams at least they follow this. We take some water and we say the Brahmarpana and put it down and then have the water. Today some Japanese scientists or whatever has told that if you take 2 glasses of water and one is left untreated, the other positive thoughts are given into that, he finds the coherence of the molecules in that water was far, far greater than that which is untreated water. Now again, our ancients knew this. That is why they took this water and put the prayer so that this food which we eat will be perfectly coherent and perfectly enable us to have better digestion, better everything. Because again, who is that? As the Lord says, okay, now let us say Ayurveda. One of the great sciences, medical sciences which are known to human beings, that the Ayurveda is a science of life and not of death and disease, but of life, and how to take care of your body so that you don't never have to cure it. And the science called dietetics, the Western science knew nothing about diet except very, very recently. Whereas in Ayurveda, from then onwards, they have been saying, let food be your medicine and medicine your food. The importance of a diet, a sattvic diet, was impressed on the people of ancient India. Today, unfortunately, we are drawn to the Kentucky chicken and the McDonald's and so on, and totally forgotten the type of diet which our ancients had. But the West is slowly rising up to saying, this is a sattvic diet. And they have given up non-vegetarian, taken up to vegetarianism. The Indians are starting to eat all this rubbish. So, if we could only go back and realize the extent of the knowledge which our rishis and follow them from morning to evening, they have detailed how a Hindu should act and work. It was, as I said, a science of life, and it is a way of living, which by itself, only by living in the way they told you, you could become an evolved and perfect person. Let us take another thing, when we've taken out water. Let us take this dot which all, nowadays of course these dots are put somewhere here and sort of all sorts of funny things are done. Whatever it is, in olden days every Hindu had a mark which came exactly between the brow. That is the Ajna Chakra, the seat of the mind, seat of intelligence. So that whenever you met any other person, you look at the person and immediately your eye is drawn to that dot there. He also is drawn, there is drawn to that dot. With the result that you draw out the best in that person and he also draws out the best in you. That was a necessity for this so-called what they call a caste mark, which is all rubbish. It was something meant to give, extra intelligence and extra power to the person. And this is a very simple, small thing which I'm saying actually. And after that, Hinduism brought out many, many great scientists who, as I said, Aryabhatta, who before that, I think Shushruta was the one, the surgeon. He was the first surgery was done by him. First surgery, he had two types, which is remarkable that he did surgery on cataract, removal of this thing, which is known as couching today. Today that same thing which he uses. Then he did rhinoplasty. The plastic surgery which only in the Second World War they found out. He was doing rhinoplasty because at that time in some war or something when the nose was removed, he was actually able to take out skin from some other place and make up. And these things were seen by the British and wrote about them when they arrived in India. But after that, there was a decadence in Hinduism after the British came over. And because they did their best, they realized that as we were a very great nation. In Macaulay, in his first address to the British Parliament, he said, I have met a race of people who are so great, who are so wonderful, who can never be, they can never be destroyed, never be subdued or conquered unless we make them believe that our culture is superior to theirs. Unless we make them fall from that culture and believe that our culture is superior. This is exactly what they started to do. They cast scorn at our Indian God. Oh, mythology, oh, mythology. It was not so. No history Indians have. Our Puranas are our history, and they were written, Itihasas and epics were written by people who actually lived at the time of Rama. Valmiki was a contemporary of Rama and Vyasa of Krishna. They wrote what they saw. They didn't write about the kings and who lived long, long ago, as Western historians did. But even then, the stupid Hindus believed that these conquerors, they wanted to please their conquerors so much that they were prepared to believe that, swallowed this fact that our culture was less than theirs and tried to ape them in all manners and customs and clothes and style of life and eating and everything. When giving up this highly scientific life which had been given to us by our rishis for thousands of years, which had existed in India, and this was brought to an end by this. And even today, as I said, the Indian historians blindly follow what the Western historians have written. And the same thing is taught to our children in India in the schools now. So that same illusion of, that we are inferior, whereas we are the most superior nation on earth, where we can be the most superior nation, because we have the most superior of all scientific knowledge in our hand, which is part of our life. Mathematically, there are so many things you can think about. Mathematically, take this thing of zero. Who found out was the Indian mathematicians who found this out in the Gwalior fort, inside the Gwalior fort. There's a first zero which you can ever see. Even the numerals which we follow, 1 to 9, were Indian mathematicians who followed. From here it spread to Arabia and then to the Western world, and so they call them Arabic numerals. They're not Arabic numerals, they're from from India in the beginning, and while the West was still following the Roman numerals, which made mathematics so easy, so difficult. How could they have, any calculations with these using Roman numerals? You know how clumsy and difficult they are. So the pi, this thing of pi, exact was already said by not Aryabhatta, was it Bhaskara? He had already given to the exact, which only so much later was, and even that he said was not exact. Even that he said there was some discrepancy. So they were such masters of any type of psychology. What Patanjali was the greatest psychologist known to man. Far long, psychology is such a very, very young science in the West. But we had known about it ages ago. As I said, Patanjali was one of the greatest psychologists. And what about the language called Sanskrit? That this is the most scientific language you can ever hope to see. And I forget his name, the one who was, did computers. When he was trying to choose the language most suitable for computer language, he said nothing which could beat Sanskrit. The grammar and so on, Panini's grammar and so on, you find. It is so precise. It is the most suitable for computer language. So this is an endless record of the greatness of our country and the greatness of religion, which I think all of you should try to read more and find out more about it and tell it to your children also, so they become proud to be a Hindu. They can tell anyone how great their religion is, especially those who are living abroad. You should try to bring it into the lives of your children, and this ashrams like this should take Bhagavad Gita classes on Hinduism and try to get all the children all around you so that you can, otherwise what is the use of an ashram if you only tell them about some stories of this thing and how you should, how we can become enlightened. Become enlightened here and now is what Hinduism says. Now I think I've almost taken up all the time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer the questions before we come to an end. Anyone with any of the children who want to ask anything, or any of the adults or so forth?
Hello Mataji, I have a question. We are talking about science in Hinduism. See, whenever we sit for puja or meditation or japa, they say you should not sit on the empty floor. You must put a carpet or some mat to sit on and perform the puja or japa. Can you give me a scientific explanation why?
It's a utilitarian explanation. Number one, if you're in a cold country, you'll be cold. It's very difficult to sit on floor. Number two, you're not having such lovely floors and something when you're sitting. The insects can come and rocks and stuff and all that. So always better to have. Now, third, very scientific explanation is that even inanimate objects have take on the vibrations of the person who is sitting on them or going. And that's why I take my own, say, the cover for that. Because even those inanimate something which you've been using all that, it draws in the energy which you are taking. So you don't want to lose that energy. So you use the same thing all the time wherever you're doing meditation. And as I said, mainly the fact that if you don't have a proper cover, in olden days they may not be such clean places, then ants will come and pinch your bottom and all sorts of things can move, wetness or drought, something will happen. So it's all very utilitarian actually. It's very, everything that is not scientific in as much as science should be utilitarian. If it has to have any meaning for us in our life, it has to provide us with some utilitarian thing. So that is the reason why Hinduism insists on this, yeah.
Right. Just a continuation of further's just now you were talking about that you have to have something on to sit, but someone once told, in one satsang I came to know that there is a magnetic energy. If you sit without anything, it will affect your thinking consciousness. So I'm not very clear about
magnetic energy from the earth, you mean?
Yes.
No, magnetic energy may be there, but then as I said, in those days, it's always better to have something under you so that you do not, have any sort of disturbance when you are sitting. That is why they insisted on this. And that what magnetic this thing when you facing of the magnetic poles is is important. But not by sitting on the bare earth. You are not going to have very good meditation, I assure you. You can try sitting on the bare earth and sitting on a comfortable seat or whatever, but you will find that after some time you start, doing this and becoming very restless. So it's all very utilitarian saying you should take a comfortable seat is what the Lord Krishna himself says, a comfortable seat. The only thing which is asked to do is that the spinal column, the neck and the head should be erect. That's all. That's the only thing is there. A comfortable seat with the straight spine, neck and head. This is the necessity of that. If there was all the scriptures have insisted that something should be put before we sit for meditation. Some mat. Of course, the kusha mat is given because it is disinfectant, and the deer skin, it has certain vibrations. All these, each one of those which are given have certain important qualities. So that's more important than getting some vibration from the earth. And anyway, we are hardly in touch with the earth in any case. We sit on 26 stories up high and meditate. Where is the thing at that time?
Mataji, excuse me. How do you explain meditation for laymen?
It's quite a bit. I think you're coming to this ashram. I'm sure the people who run this ashram will be able to give you this. But all you can follow what Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita very, very simply. He puts it how to sit and how to. But mainly I would say resort to japa. Krishna says japa yajna is the biggest of all yajnas. It is available easily to anyone at any time, at any space. So this japa can be done by anyone. And japa is the mantras have the power to draw the power of the deity into oneself. The sound and form, nama rupa, is so closely connected that sound, that's why the rishis are so great. They try to draw that absolute from the formless into some form by which the human being could conceive. And they did two ways they do. Into the sound form, which is the mantra, and the actual yantra forms of the yantras and the mandalas and the yantras and the chakras, or all they brought that form into that amazing mathematical figure, which even today, when the Sri Chakra for instance, even today they do not know how to draw the perfect Sri Chakra. The lines of this thing are so amazing. So these, the greatest of the rishis, they brought the formless down into a set of lines and so on, and into the sound of the mantra. Look at how the compassionate they wanted the human being to have it at somehow or other. Yeah.
Mataji, first of all, I thank I'm a Hindu. Your speech was so nice, elevating. And the question behind here is that I hope I can place it well. Many years ago, rishis came, so many seers came. Today, everywhere, we are losing them. Where are we going ahead?
Not at all, not at all. The holy land of India is producing rishis one after the other. Oh, every age we have some great soul, some coming up.
Yes, but the whole world is losing on to Hinduism. There's a lot, many other religions are coming up. And I hope this is not a racist question, but we are losing, and are we going to lose more? Is Hinduism going to be alive all the way?
It is the longest lasting religion in the world. It has never lost out despite the continuous attacks on it from the time of the Muslims on. It is not lost. And today is up to you. You are the inheritors of this great tradition. Why do you ask me this? You should say that your children know how they should be brought up in knowing the exact forms. Such lethargy is found in the parents themselves. How do you expect the children to know this? It's your duty to learn about it and teach it to the children. This is one of the latest books here. It's called the Science called Hinduism. If I don't have enough, all the copies are sold out in here. But if anyone wants to get any of the books here, you can give their name and this thing to Naga, Dr. Naga, and we will see that it is sent out to you. So it is your duty to see that this tradition is kept alive for future generations, because Hinduism, the loss in Hinduism, it's not a loss mainly to the Indians, but to the entire world. Such is the power of this amazing religion that it can enervate and bring out the best in the whole of humanity.
So we have the crusades from it. We have the crusade.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And I'm all for the crusade.
Just one question. Look at that Dasavada Vishnu. Does it scientifically show the evolution of mind? Dasavada.
Dashavadara is evolution. The evolutionary is because Matsya Kurma, Varaha come the fish to the amphibian to the this thing and so on. That is the culminating in the highest of all, Krishna. Kalki of course comes. Kalki is ever ready all the time here. Ever ready in amongst us. So that this illusionary theory comes in the avatars.
One last question I'd like to ask Mataji. People always, I think one of the discoveries of the Hindu sages is the discovery of a fourth level of consciousness, which they describe it as Turiya. Can you enlighten us on that?
Turiya is not just a fourth level, it is that constant consciousness which is in all of us. That is the level of that divine which is ever in us. All the other three consciousnesses are superimposed on that. That is Jagrat, Swapna and Sujupti. They are all impositions on that. Turiya is our basic state, the fundamental state, the basic state. And just from, as we said, from the void comes all these things, from the field comes all, from that comes all these, that is a connection there over the whole universe. The Turiya state exists everywhere, that's a state of that Brahman. So that exists everywhere. It's from that we get all knowledge, from anything that we know is from that. So even these states are only superimposed. Now, for instance, we are supposed to be, hopefully we are all in the waking states of consciousness at the moment. Jagrat. Are we all in Jagrat? Yeah, okay. See, every state of consciousness has its own reality also. Every stage has its own. Today, in the waking state, you are here, I am here. This is how they found out about the existence of another state. And then, but if you go to sleep in this state, in this place, and you start dreaming, what is your reality then? You're dreaming what a tiger is chasing you, and all the physiological traits of fear are found in you. Somebody is watching you, you might even, yell out and do all sorts of things there. So what is your experience of reality in that dreaming state? Totally different from this, isn't it? You are in a forest or a tiger. Then you go to sleep, exhausted sleep. What is your reality in that state? Pure bliss almost. Everybody loves to sleep because why? That's the only chance they get a little bit of bliss here or there. Everybody. And the same experience is whether you are a beggar. Some beggars I know who sleep on a platform, like very small ledge overlooking the Ganga. The Ganga is down there, they are happily sleeping on top of it. Blissful state of non-awareness. So that in the Sushupti stage again, your reality is totally different. But when you wake up, what do you say? I had a terrible nightmare. Then I had a lovely sleep. So there was something there which was a witness, which is your waking state, a witness your dreaming state, witness your sleep, deep sleep state. That is the I you have to catch. That is the $1 million question. Who am I? Which Ramana Maharshi asked everybody. That is the Turiya state of that I, which always exists in all the states. That is the state from which all the other states arise. I'm sure there are a lot of students around here, but nobody asked any questions. Yeah. So, shall we stop then and shall we do the peace mantra, which I think all of you know. Om Swastik Prajabhyam Paripalayanta Nyayena Mahyena Mahim Mahisha Gopramane Subhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Loka काले वर्षद पर्जन्यः पृथिवी शस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं शोभरहितः सज्जनात् सन्तु निर्भयाः ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ओम Thanks to Dr. Nagaji, who is the one responsible for having arranged this meeting here, and thanks to all the members and the Swamijis of this ashram. When you come to your ashram in Rishikesh, hopefully you will visit our